Everything that happens now will be live. Oh, there we go. All right. Hi, everyone. I think we're live. Let me know in the chat if you're here and if you can see us and if we are live. It looks like we are. This is the first time I'm doing a live stream over Zoom with a bunch of people. So I just want to make sure that it's working. It looks like we are working. But let me know in the chat if you can hear us, if you can see us. And hello and welcome to, do you guys have mute the YouTube in the background? Okay. Hello, you guys, and welcome to our little talk here on the biggest myths and mistakes that we have run into as professional astrologers throughout our careers, and especially when we first started learning. So today we're going to be talking about some things that might be a little controversial in the astrology world. So we do ask that you keep a little bit of an open mind about what we're having to say here today, and keep it tame in the chat. But we are going to be talking about some big myths and mistakes that have kind of run amok in the astrology world and that prevent people from actually learning how to give meaningful, accurate astrology readings, and things that we personally, as professional astrologers, wish we would have known when we first got started. And so it looks like some of you guys are chiming into the chat. Hi, Tina. Hi, Linda. Nice to see you. We also have Tracy here, who's our virtual assistant. She's going to be helping you guys if you need anything and just interacting with you guys over in the chat. But as you can see, I have with me some very special guests here. So we have Shanna Cross, Jen Kinsella, and Alex Hunt, who are our teaching assistants in the Cosmic Academy of Astrology. They're all brilliant professional astrologers in their own right, with thriving astrology practices, in addition to helping to teach our students in the academy. And so, yeah, I'm going to give you guys a minute to introduce yourselves so that way everyone in the chat can get to know you a little better. Oh, hi, Kelly. Kelly's one of our students in the academy. It's good to see you here. But yeah, so first we have Shanna, who you guys might have seen already on my channel. We've done a couple of videos together on Venus and desire. We also talked about house rulerships and freaky accurate astrology readings. But Shanna, if you could just give us a quick rundown of your background and how you came to become an astrologer.
Yeah, sure. So I have always loved astrology. I always tell this story that I received a pendant when I was a young child that had the crab on it, and then all the other zodiacs around it with the, June 20th through July 21st dates for the crab, because that's my sun sign. And it always fascinated me. And Jenny actually reminded me several months ago of the little rolled up notes on your zodiac that you could purchase in the store when we were children. I don't think you can purchase them anymore, but I used to get those all the time.
Yeah, I remember those too.
So I've always loved astrology, but I was never really sure of myself, and I never thought that I could learn it, because once I found out we were more than just our sun signs, it just seemed way too complicated for me to learn. So this was pre-internet days and all of that. So I just kind of let it go. Found it again shortly after my daughter was born, because so many weird coincidences and things that had happened up until then. I started watching videos, YouTube was prevalent, watching astrologers, all of that. So I went through so many videos on my own, books, all of that, couldn't put it together, found Heather when she first started doing YouTube. And I probably hounded you 100 times or so if you were going to do a course, and you're like, no, I'm not going to do a course yet. Sorry. So you recommended me to one of your mentors, and I took their online course, and then you started offering your course. And so I took that, and the rest is really kind of history.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm so glad that you did take that course, because Shanna's actually our lead teaching assistant. She's been with us with the Academy for 2.5 years now, and she does amazing work, you guys. She is an absolutely brilliant astrologer. So I'm so grateful to have her here with us for this video, but also, as a teaching assistant in the Academy, which, by the way, you guys, is open for enrollment right now, early bird enrollments. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But let's get to know Jen a little bit. Jen is our newest teaching assistant in the Academy, and she's also also a very brilliant astrologer. She's been with me for a while too, as a client and a student. And so, how did you get into astrology? How did you come to this place?
Hi everyone, thanks Heather. Similar to Shanna, when I was young, I was always like really interested in astrology, and I used to week by week. I remember they brought out this series of learn how to read astrology, and every week I just found them recently. I have a big stack of magazines that I used to collect every week from your zodiac sign to the planets, all of those things, and so I have all of those still. But like that, life came around and, put that to the side and that kind of thing. But when I found out, I suppose I started delving deeper into it with the moon sign, and I'm a Scorpio moon. So then obviously that just became an obsession then.
Yeah.
It just kind of hit home at one point, and just started getting really deep into it. And again, YouTube came along, and there was so much available, so much information apart from just books that you could get your hands on. I'm from Ireland, and there isn't a lot of resources here, in so far as books. There's not courses, there's not anything like that. There's not a community in the area that I'm in. I'm sure there is, but there's not that's widely known. So when YouTube and online communities came about, that was kind of it for me. And I saw Heather as well online, and I just loved the way you were able to I felt like it was nearly like not a cheat sheet, but it was like you had gone through all the hard work and filtered out all the stuff that we didn't need to know about and put it into place. So it was really easy. Then it was like, yeah, I've a Sagittarius Mercury with Neptune, so I need that kind of pieces. I need the pieces put in place for me. So it just clicked for me then, and I was like, yeah, this is what I need to be doing. And I just kind of went on from there, and I've been every single day then ever since. And Shanna was also one of my mentors in the course in the Cosmic Academy, and taught me a lot. So I'm going to vouch for her there, what Heather said as well.
Well, awesome. And I'm so glad that you joined us. And I'm so glad that you're here with us in the Academy. You're already doing such amazing work teaching our students, and you're just getting started. So I'm very excited to see where everything takes us. And then we also have Alex. Alex joined us as a teaching assistant last year. She's also a graduate of the Academy. And she's kind of like our beacon of positivity in the community, in the student forum, and in her Q&A sessions with our students. And so, Alex, thank you so much for being here. Let us know a little bit about your background and how you got into astrology.
Oh, thank you, Heather. That's so lovely to hear. So hello, everyone. So I'm Alex. I sort of found out, very similar to Shanna and Jenny, I found out about astrology when I was younger as well, and sort of was always really interested. I think my very first experience of knowing what astrology was, I actually got like a similar to Shanna's story, like a jewelry piece with the astrological sign of Leo on it. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. And that kind of piqued my interest when I was little. And then fast forward quite a few years later, I found out about the big three through a friend who was very much into her spirituality and astrology. So I was like, oh, this is really interesting. Dug a little deeper, found a little bit more, was haphazardly putting things together. This was around 2013, 2014. And then my life took a little bit of a different path, and I sort of kind of dropped my studies a little bit. And then sort of fast forward to around 2018, 19, when I found Heather on YouTube. So I was starting to watch Heather's videos religiously and sort of diving in a bit deeper then. And I was like, this is really interesting and feels like I want to explore it a lot more. And so I had a bit of a dark night of the soul during that time too, and sort of was redirected in my life path. And I went and was like, I need to officially study this because it's so aligned with what I want to do. And then I enrolled in the Cosmic Academy of Astrology in 2021. I took the leap. I was like, I'm going to invest in myself and really not piece things all together from random sources, and actually get a solid foundational understanding of what it is. And then from there, the rest is history, and just learning things so easily through the course and really actually getting it and grasping it. I actually did a course prior to the Cosmic Academy of Astrology, which just kind of made me a little bit less confident in my skills because it didn't land with me. It didn't resonate. So once I completed the course, and Shanna was also one of my teaching assistant mentors through the course too. So after end of 2021, I was feeling really confident and really self-assured in my skill set. So I started working and doing astrology as a professional astrologer, and then the rest is kind of history. And then Heather asked me to join her team last year. So it was very exciting. It all felt very aligned and synchronistic. So yeah, that's a bit about me. And obviously I'm from New Zealand, so that's my Australian accent as well.
Yeah, we have people from like all over the globe here now, which I love. And thank you so much for sharing that. I'm so glad that you joined us. And that's so common for people to find astrology when they're having that dark night of the soul or some sort of crisis. Let us know in the chat, by the way, if that's something that resonates with you. Like, did you guys find astrology when you were searching for answers, when you were going through a difficult time in your life? And what was that experience like, if you don't mind sharing? And if you're watching the replay, comment down below and let us know. But let's kind of start getting into the nitty gritty here. So we're going to be talking about some myths, some mistakes, the things that we did wrong. We're going to be admitting, you guys, that we made mistakes. And I am a Virgo, so that is a big deal. And we're admitting these mistakes and helping you to avoid them so you don't have to make the same mistakes we did. And so before we get into that, I do just want to mention that the Cosmic Academy of Astrology is open for enrollment. Early bird enrollment ends tonight at midnight. So if you're here watching this video because you want to become a professional astrologer, or you want to just learn how to give readings so you can understand yourself, so you can help your friends and family, if your goal is to become an astrologer in any sort of way, this is the course for you, especially if you're struggling to synthesize and put together what you've been learning all over the place, all over YouTube, from books, from one-off webinars. This is the place for you. We provide lots of structured education, mentorship from all of us you're seeing right here on the screen, and lots of active learning and practice. And so for right now, you can join for 20% off your tuition. You can get started for as little as $88, which is insanity, because this is a course that should cost thousands and does not. And so, yeah, definitely hit that link if that's something you're interested in. But let's get into the conversation. So if you guys in the chat have questions about what we're talking about, or if you have things that you want to share in terms of myths, mistakes, things that you believed at one point about astrology that you now know are not real, let us know. We're going to check in with the chat, and we'll probably chat about some of your myths and mistakes and things that you've kind of broken through in the past as well. But let's kind of jump into this. So Shanna, what was kind of a big misunderstanding or mistake about astrology that you wish you would have known when you were first getting started?
So one of the things that you kind of doesn't sink in really quickly when you're learning astrology is that we are not our entire chart. We're not represented by the entire chart. There's certain houses and planets that represent us. And learning that was kind of an aha moment, right? Because the first house, right, is us. It's our physical body. It's our physical self. The planet that rules that sign is also kind of like our avatar representative, right? But like another house, an example would be like the ninth house. That's like our view on the world and how we see reality around us. We might adhere to that, right? Because it's our belief system, but we are not that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of a thing too there's a lot of weird misconceptions about the houses and the house systems, and a lot of infighting amongst astrologers about the different house systems as well. But that's one big thing that I didn't realize at first either, because I learned, modern Western psychological astrology where everything in the chart is you. And it's not always the case. Like, yes, everything in the chart is a part of you. It's a part of your experience, but it's also, you are that first house and that first house ruler. And everything else represents different topics, different themes, different relationships, and other people and situations in your life in relationship to you. And so it's not necessarily that everything in the chart is always you. It's about your experience. It's about everything in your life, everything in your world. And that's kind of a huge thing. So let me know in the chat, you guys, if any of you guys had that aha moment at any point in time in your journey learning astrology. I know, Kelly and Lil Miss Wicked You guys are in the Cosmic Academy of Astrology, so you might have known this coming in, or it might have been like new information for you. That kind of leads me to one of the things that I wish that I would have known when I first started learning astrology, which is again about the houses. A couple different things. I have a lot of house things that I was really confused about. That's why we spend so much time talking about the houses in the academy. But I really so I learned from that modern Western framework, right? My first teacher was a modern Western Placidus only astrologer, which was great. It got me in the door. My background's in psychology. I was getting my master's degree when I found astrology. And so the psychological component is what I was really into. So that was right for me at the time. But the modern Western take on the houses is very confusing. And it's just not accurate. I hate to say it. It's just not. I've tried it and tried it again. It doesn't work that way. And so the modern Western take on the houses is that the signs in the houses are interchangeable. They are pretty much the same thing. So in that scheme, you have Aries is the first house, Taurus is the second house, Gemini is the third house, Cancer is the fourth house, et cetera, et cetera. And it does not work that way. It just doesn't. They don't perfectly overlap. They were created as two completely separate systems that mean completely different things, where the houses are providing context. They're showing different topics, themes, areas of life, relationships. And the signs show primarily how the planetary energies are being expressed. And there's a reason that there's 12 signs and 12 houses. It's because the original house system was whole sign houses, and it was meant that one sign would describe the entirety of these topics of each house, right? But it's not that the Aries is the first house, Taurus is the second house. And so a couple of different reasons why this is super confusing for new astrologers and new students when they learn it this way is because, well, for one, they're getting like weird interpretations that aren't working. They're like, okay, this isn't landing with my clients, which I would find a lot, especially with Aquarius being the 11th house and some of those themes. But also because when you have a chart that has a Libra rising, let me know in the chat if this has ever happened to you. If you have a chart that's a Libra rising chart, then all of a sudden you have this situation where the signs are in their opposite houses. And I get this question so frequently, and we get this question so frequently from our students when they first get started in the Cosmic Academy of Astrology, because it creates this like weird thing where like, well, how do I interpret this? If Libra is the exact same thing as the seventh house, but Aries is the exact same thing as the first house, and now Aries is in the seventh house and Libra's in the first house, like my brain's exploding. I don't understand how to do this. So it erases that problem, because it's not a problem. That's not how it works. The other thing is that when you're looking at house rulerships, it confuses the heck out of people, because they're like, well, do I look at the natural ruler of the second house, which is Venus, or do I look at the ruler of Gemini, because Gemini is in my second house? There's no natural ruler of the second house. The ruler of your second house is the sign that rules the planet that rules the sign that occupies that house. And so if in whole sign houses you have Gemini occupying the second house, then Mercury is always the ruler of your second house. No confusion needed. There's no secondary ruler or natural ruler. It's just plain and simple. And that's really how it works. So clearing up that was huge for me. My readings got so much better after I started looking at it in that framework. What about you guys? Did you guys run into that too?
Yeah, there's a chart that I use quite a bit in the academy that it's a Libra rising. And so I worked with that quite a bit before I switched to whole sign, because I was also a heavy Placidus user.
Yeah.
And I wasn't interpreting things the way I should have been until I did that switch and figured that out. And once that happened, this person just kept calling and saying, read my chart. What's going on? You were so accurate of what was coming up. Tell me more.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. What about you guys, Jen, Alex?
Well, like I said earlier, I kind of feel like I had a bit of a cheat sheet, and piggybacking on that, like that was one of the main things that I had a problem with at the start, was trying to understand why my chart totally shifts houses. Because if I go from Placidus to whole sign, everything moves. And I just found this so confusing as well. But when I took your course then, because you just had that like already laid out for us, then I didn't have to worry about that side of things at all with regards to, Aries ruling the first house or any of that. The only thing that kind of confused me then was the difference between Placidus and whole sign and how everything moves. So I was like, now I have to start all over again and like figure out my chart in a totally different way because I had changed house systems, but I didn't have that confusion. And I didn't like Placidus was fine, but the size of the houses and having a couple of different signs in one house, that was difficult to navigate in other people's charts as well. But once whole sign came in, and I didn't have that element of it because, like I said, you had done all the research on that, and I didn't ascribe to that then at all. So I got lucky there.
Yeah. And that's like a common thing. And that's one of the things, another thing I wish I would have known when I first got started. I was like a diehard, like Placidus only for the first 2 to 3 years. I was very against looking at whole sign houses, as a lot of people are when they're taught Placidus for some reason. I don't know why at this point I was so like stuck on this like Placidus thing, but I was so rigid about it. And I really wish I would have started looking into whole sign houses sooner because it really did elevate my understanding. I was at first looking at Placidus with whole sign houses for a while. And then I switched just to whole sign and I used Placidus as secondary for certain specific things. But like, people are very like stuck on like it has to be Placidus, it has to be whole sign, it has to be whatever, and it doesn't necessarily have to be one or the other. Like these all have their own merits and their own reasons for using them, right? And so, yeah, that's another thing that I really, really wish. And Kelly actually said, joining Heather's course. So she was doing evolutionary astrology at first and she was really struggling. But she said that joining Heather's course helped her with the structure since that's what she needed. And our explanation of the houses in the course is one of the easiest to understand. And there's a reason for that, you guys, because we all struggled with the houses. Alex, what about you? Did you start with Placidus or were you a whole sign?
No, I started with Placidus. That was in the first sort of introduction I had to looking at a chart, and I did find it tricky. With my chart, it doesn't change too much, so I was kind of like lucky in that aspect. It didn't sort of change too much for me looking at it, but it was when I looked at other people's charts, I was kind of like, a little bit confused. So learning the whole sign, and then like you said, Heather and Shanna and Jenny, when you start interpreting things make a lot more sense when you're using whole sign houses. So that's where it really navigated with me really easily. And like Jenny said, Heather has done all the homework and all the research, and it's all in the course, and that's what solidified it all for me. So yeah, that was my experience.
Yeah, well, good. I'm so glad. And yeah, that whole sign house thing, it's interesting because a lot of our viewers also watch the astrology podcast. And I was watching like 2 nights ago, Chris Brennan did I didn't watch all of it. It's like 7 hours talking about like how whole sign houses was the original house system and like this debate that he's having with some other astrologer or something like that. But like it is like a big thing. Like people get really stuck on one or the other. But what the other thing I've noticed when I started switching to whole sign houses is that my predictions are way better. First off, that's how I actually got into it. I always tell this story of how like I couldn't figure out how my husband, every single time Mercury went retrograde or station, something weird would happen with his job or he'd change jobs. And it just every single time, like clockwork, I knew it was going to happen, but I couldn't figure out why with his Placidus chart because his 10th house in Placidus is ruled by Libra. It's Venus. I'm like, well, this doesn't make any sense. Finally, all of a sudden, one day it clicked with me. In whole sign houses, his 10th house is occupied by Virgo. It's ruled by Mercury. Oh my God. And from then on out, I started really diving into how to not just whole sign houses, but house rulerships, because the house rulerships weren't working for me until that moment that I started looking at whole sign houses. That type of interpretation does not work well in practice at all when you're using Placidus. It just doesn't. I don't know why it just doesn't. And I think because it originally was used with whole sign houses, and so that's kind of another component. I don't know if you guys found that too. Were you using house rulerships before you switch to whole sign?
I tried to, but like for my chart, it doesn't make a whole lot of, it doesn't change a lot, but like for other people that I know that I look at their charts, it does quite a bit. So we were missing whole signs because of interceptions in the Placidus chart. And so once we switched to the whole sign houses, those interceptions are gone, and you're looking at it just straight up. Each house is its own sign. So yeah, it definitely made a huge difference when I switched.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Alex? Were you looking at house rulerships at all, or did you start that after?
Yeah, that was definitely after when I started looking and working through the course with the whole sign.
Okay, yeah. And so good. You started out on the right foot and you weren't like this is a garbage interpretation technique. Awesome. What about you guys in the chat? So what house system do you guys like to use? And have you switched from Placidus to whole sign? What do you guys think about that? So what's your preference about houses? And if you're, again, watching the replay, comment below and let us know if any of this resonates with you. Danielle says, I love astrology so much and wish I could take the Cosmic Academy of Astrology. Well, whenever you're ready, Danielle, we will be here waiting for you. So I hope that you join us someday. Okay, so let's move on. Let's switch gears here. So Jen, let's move on to you. So what was something that you wish you would have realized when you first started learning astrology?
So I suppose I was getting a lot of information from different places. So if I was interested in something, say I heard about astrocartography and I thought, oh, I always want to move. I have Uranus there, my moon in the fourth house. I'm like always looking to different places, and I'd look into that and I'd learn a bit about that. But I didn't have a foundation, and I was taking a piece. I'd learn I'd get a small webinar and I'd learn that, but it wouldn't fit properly. It wouldn't sink in properly because I didn't have a strong foundation, strong enough to understand it. And I might look at another webinar on a different topic and jump from topic to topic, but I couldn't put it all together. So it was like piecemeal information that I was getting all over. But and some of it was even coming from different types of astrology. So some of it could have been Vedic astrology, and then there was, then it was coming from traditional astrology, Hellenistic astrology or whatever, and it wasn't melting together. It wasn't making sense to me, and I couldn't put the pieces together properly. So that was a big learning curve, knowing the differences in the different types of astrology, having the basics so that you could apply, you could learn those different things once you had a solid foundation. Then you can move into those different areas. But I mean, it's like trying to run before you can walk. Otherwise you can't do that. Like, it doesn't make sense,
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I really try to drive the point home with the Cosmic Academy of Astrology is like, you need to go through layer by layer and not just go through it in a specific sequential order. So you have all of those foundations in place before you start learning all sorts of niche topics, but you also need to integrate each layer with the layer previously. So like understanding the planets first and then the signs, and then how the planets and signs synergize to work together for an interpretation, and then the houses and how the houses synergize with the planets and signs. And then from there, you start incorporating the basic interpretations from the aspects, synergize that, then you get more complicated, and then you move on to other things. And most people aren't layering it in this way, and they're definitely not like doing it with active practice and like strategic ways of thinking about the interpretations and putting it together. And so that's a really big thing. I don't know, Alex, I feel like we all learned that way at first. Like we were just like, I'm going to listen to a podcast while I'm, cooking dinner, and I'll be a master astrologer if I do that. And then read this blog post from some random guy on the internet that probably doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot for me was sort of like, I'd look at the chart and then I'd look at the certain placements and I'd just find random interpretations of that and try and put that in when I'm trying to read someone's chart for them. And that it just was like trying to put together so many different ingredients and trying to figure out how this works. And then also, again, like you said, learning through different sources that kind of like didn't cohesively link everything together or talked about certain things and left out certain things. So absolutely, it was really hard to comprehend and give accurate and precise readings and information to people. Even myself, I was just so confused. So yeah, very, very definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about you, Shanna?
Yeah, for sure. When I first started learning, when I was learning Vedic, and because of the language difference, I was so confused all the time. What nakshatra is this? What is, what
Yeah.
house of the moon? And so, and then I found modern Placidus. And so I was like, oh, this makes a lot more sense. But I was still kind of like going through, okay, well, what is Mars like in this house or this house or this house? Or what does this mean? It wasn't cohesive. It was just kind of like, well, maybe if I can find a video on Mars in all 12 houses, I'll do okay. But no, it's there's definitely layers and steps to it.
Yeah. And that's kind of another thing too, like relying, you guys both mentioned kind of looking up these like cookbook interpretations. And those definitely have their place if you're in the learning process, especially to get your mind going and start to get your mind stimulated about thinking about certain ways of interpreting it. But when you start relying on that, it makes your brain lazy. And so your brain isn't able to critically think about, hey, how do I put Mars together with Gemini? On my own, I know this about Mars. I know what Gemini does. Like, let's start to synergize this for ourselves in our brains in order to give an interpretation. You're not doing that. It's kind of like how we lose a lot of skills by relying on technology or relying on other people or other things to do it for us. Like nowadays, nobody can even drive anywhere. Like you can't even figure out how to get to like a store that's 2 towns over without your GPS. Whereas back in the day, you would just like write down the directions or you would like have someone speak them to you and then you would figure it out. And like, we'll go to the same place 20 times and still use our GPS because our brains can't navigate anymore. It's the same thing with astrology. If you're just reading cookbook texts for every single interpretation, you're not exercising your critical thinking skills about the astrology. So it's a crutch. And sometimes it's good like for like training wheels with getting started. But yeah, there's bad to that too. For sure. So what about you, Alex? What's another thing that you wish you would have understood when you first started with astrology?
Yeah, definitely. It was more like as well, like when you're studying, you're so isolated sometimes, and you don't have that person or mentor or sort of sounding board to kind of steer you in the right direction and know that what you're picking up and understanding and comprehending is on the right track. So for me, having that support and community, like it's so isolating anyway when you're sort of online learning things, because you're kind of trying to find that community where you can talk about these things you're interested in, and having that community in the Cosmic Academy of Astrology was such a turning point for me, having people that was also really interested in what I was interested in and talking about what I like to talk about, and sort of sounding our ideas off each other and learning from them and seeing how they interpret things. And oh, that's interesting, I see it in that way, because we all see things differently. So having the different points of view and sort of broadening your perspective in that way. And also then of course the amazing assistance from you Heather, and the teaching assistants really guided me through my learning. And I think without that I would have been so far behind. I wouldn't be actually where I am today, confident in the skill set that I have and being steered in the right direction and knowing, okay, I am getting it, I am doing this right. Because that's the thing I think a lot of studies tend to be a little bit missing in, is having that direct confirmation. So that was a big thing for me, especially when I started. I didn't have that, so I was like, oh, am I doing this correct? I don't know.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and it makes sense that that's why now you want to do that in the academy for our students.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really common thing, like feeling isolated and not like I didn't have as much of that. My friends are all weirdos. So like I had a lot of people that were interested in astrology, but they weren't astrologers and they weren't studying. So it wasn't like I could be like, I'm practicing this. Like, what do you think about it? Like that type of thing where we could talk like shop about astrology. It's more like, hey, Heather, Mercury's in retrograde. What's going on with that? And like, they're interested, but like, that's not helping me in the same way. So having a sense of community with like actual astrologers and students of astrology, that I think is harder to find. What about you, Shanna? How do you feel about that? Did you feel isolated when you were first starting?
Yes, because every time I open my mouth about astrology, everybody's like, oh, here we go again.
Let me know in the chat if you resonate with that. I feel like that's everyone. Sorry, I feel like I was yelling.
Yeah, it was tough. And like now people are actually starting in my community. Like I've kind of talked about it enough and annoyed people enough, I guess, that they're like, well, what does this mean? And what does that mean? And hey, Mercury's going retrograde and I'm having a really hard time. Can you look at my chart for me? Yeah, sure.
That's awesome. Yeah. And it's becoming way more popular and way more widely accepted in the past few years, especially since like 2020. When shit hits the fan, people are looking for answers, especially when nothing makes sense.
Exactly.
So they're looking at alternatives. But what about you, Jen? Did you kind of feel that way?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I was saying earlier, there isn't really, well, I don't have any community here in where I live in Wexford in Ireland at all. But or just and people around would be interested, and they are much more interested now. But it was definitely an online community was where I found, comfort. And even like Alex was saying, I 100% agree with that. But I found with the Cosmic Academy, what was great was it was a safe place to be wrong. When you're learning, it was like, you could be wrong and you could see how to change that, and or how part of what you said was right, but here you could reframe it and guide it to find the right answer. And it was just a safe place to kind of bounce things off each other. And then you had study groups and everyone was able to help each other out in that way. And that was kind of good too, because you are going to be wrong. You are going to kind of not understand those things, especially when it isn't something that you're learning from other people. You're trying to exercise that muscle in your brain to kind of start synergizing everything, all that information. So you're going to get it wrong at times, like, and that's part of the journey. If you don't get it wrong, you're not going to ever find out how to figure it out yourself. So that was another part of that community aspect that really helped me grow and learn and have that confidence and be able to be wrong and go, yeah, that's okay. I just move on to the next thing. And that got that out of the way for me, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. And that's why we talked about this in the Secrets of Astrology Mastery recently, but that's like why a lot of students don't practice. They're afraid of being wrong. But that feedback when you're wrong is so important because it helps you fine tune your skills, your techniques. It helps you know if you're understanding the technique properly. Maybe it's not even a good technique. Sometimes that's the case too. Like it really helps you hone in on your skills. And even everyone watching, you guys, even the best astrologers are wrong sometimes. Astrology is not an exact science. It is a technical art. And most astrologers are getting about, like, the really good astrologers, most of them are getting about 80% accuracy. Like nobody's getting 100% accuracy on any of their readings. I'd say you could get a little bit higher on natal chart readings versus predictions. But either way, nobody's right 100% of the time. So as you're going through and practicing, you're going to get it wrong. Even later on, after you've been doing it for 20 years, you're going to get stuff wrong. And that's something that you have to be okay with as an astrologer. And that's something that for me was a little difficult at first. I'm a Virgo. I'm always right. So no, you're wrong. I'm right. But yeah, you have to kind of be okay with that. Absolutely. So, yeah, what about you, Shanna? What's another thing that you, like, a mistake or a myth or a misconception from early on that you wish you would have known?
Having someone or having people, right? Like having that community, like Jen was talking about, because sometimes when we're going through really intense transits, we scare ourselves, right? Especially when we're learning. And so, like having Pluto transiting opposite your sun, like that's a really intense transit. And that happened to me while I was still learning astrology. And I was freaked out, because my sun is in the 12th house and here Pluto is transiting my 6th. Am I going to die? Right? Like there's that question. So no, I didn't die, obviously. But I was freaked out. I didn't know what was going to happen.
Absolutely. And let us know in the chat if you've experienced this, because I think a lot of us, when we look at our own charts, we tend to jump to the worst case scenario, like way more so than we would ever do with a client or a friend or family member. Like when it's us, we're like, oh, this is going to be the worst thing ever. And it's usually not. Alex, I know you're nodding your head. Do you experience this too?
Yeah, definitely. And it's usually, and it all manifests in different experiences too. Like we always, naturally we go worst case scenario, and I do that sometimes, most of the time. And so it's not always going to manifest that way. And oftentimes it won't. And so it's just keeping in mind that it's can manifest in a multitude of different ways, and just trying to see what it's sort of bringing up and things like that. But I've definitely gone there myself for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Jen?
Yeah, and that is it can be. That's another thing that I wish I had known, because you can, when you're learning things online or looking things up online, it can be quite frightening. You can think, oh, Mars is associated with death, and then you look at, you look and in the eighth house, and it's like, oh, I've lost sleep over those things at times. Like, I'm like, oh, is this guy? And I need to research more and research more. And those things, they are frightening, when you don't know all the information. And like Alex just said, they can manifest in so many different ways, and throughout our life these transits are happening all the time, and they don't manifest in the worst case scenario every single time, or there wouldn't be any scenarios. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
obviously they can show up in so many different ways, and we can experience it in so many different ways. And but it can. And even the houses, like my Sun and Venus are both in the sixth house, and I would like hearing from, I think it was a Vedic astrologer told me that that's a really hard house. It's a difficult house. It's, one of the worst houses to have your son in. It'll always be a struggle for you and things like that. But learning it, the way I've learned it, it's like, it's a house of service. It's a house of, health, daily routines, colleagues. And it doesn't have to be like that. It can be a good house. All right, yeah, it'll be a busy house, but it's not the worst case scenario either. We can reframe those things into positivity.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of what we would do for other people. So it's interesting that we don't do that for ourselves. Like when it's us, we're not kind to ourselves. We're like, okay, we're like, everything is just going to be a disaster. Interesting. So kind of switching gears, I wanted to mention another thing that I really wish I would have known when I first got started studying astrology, because I think I would have taken this more seriously, because I actually became an astrologer on accident. I was studying it as a hobby because I loved it and I was super passionate about it, but I kept trying to get all of these certifications and do all of these other things as a career, because I'm like, oh, astrology can't be a career. You can't make money doing that. And part of the reason for that is because I had a couple of different mentors and people that I knew in the astrological community who had been doing it for years and years and were always kind of struggling financially. And I was like, all right, so astrology equals martyring yourself and, living kind of in this sketchy spot where you can't really afford things. And that's how I grew up. I didn't want to be like, living paycheck to paycheck. And so I didn't take it seriously as something that could be a viable career path. And I was so wrong about that, you guys. Like astrology, if you run an astrology business and you treat it as a business and nurture the business part of it, if you have that desire and that sense, and if you actually enjoy running a business, which I do, and I have that in my chart, like I'm an astrologer, but I like running my business, you can be very successful at it. And that is something I didn't even realize. It's just like any other business. The first few years, it's going to be a little rough. You're going to, have to be a little scrappy about it. But once you take it seriously, put in the work, get things going, eventually you can have success a few years in and you'll be fine. And so being an astrologer doesn't mean that you have to live in poverty. It also is okay to earn money helping people and being an astrologer. There's also this weird stigma in the spiritual community. And I almost felt ashamed to like charge for something that I am very skilled at and that is helping a lot of people. So I would undercharge like crazy. And I wasn't valuing what I was doing out in the world in the same way that like I knew it was valuable, but the monetary compensation I was receiving was not reflecting that value, because there is that stigma and that like shaming of people for wanting to earn a living while also helping people. And I think that that's a good thing, to be able to do that personally. I don't know about you guys, if you guys ran into that when you were first starting out. Did you think that this couldn't be like your career?
No, not at all. Not at all. I actually, when I first started out, I was only charging $20 for an hour reading.
Oh, Jesus Christ. And that's like 3 hours of work. That's not like,
Yeah.
well, there you go. So did you ever think that you could do this professionally and like actually earn a living at it?
I thought that it would always be like a part-time thing, just because I've never had my own business, you know what I mean? So I've always worked for like big corporations for most of my life, right? So being on your own and being an entrepreneur is always something I wanted to do and I wanted to try. Did I think that it would be astrology? Nope, I sure did not. But now here I am running my business, right? And yeah, I didn't think I would get here though. I really didn't.
Well, I'm so glad that you did, because you're much happier now than when you were, moonlighting as an astrologer.
Yes, exactly.
What about you, Jen?
Yeah, I mean, I just saw Robin Carroll's comment there, astrology chooses us. And I think that that's really true. It's like, it is something that it chooses us, and we just like the same. I have the very same mindset that it's like, oh yeah, I have to have a proper job. Do you know, that kind of way? It's like, I have to have that too. I have to have, because what if that fails, or what if I fail, or what if working for myself doesn't work out? But I'm just so much happier doing this. Like so it doesn't matter then, And I did have that another situation like that where I had a reading done, and they said, oh, you'll only ever do it because you'll only ever do a part-time or working from home or those kind of things. You won't have this full kind of career doing it. And I was just, I thought, oh, that's it then. I'll have to keep going and finding other ways to work as well alongside of it. And then I thought, yeah, no, I do actually have to do it from home, because I do it from home. I work from home with my readings. So that actually is how it works. And now I'm working for you and I'm at home doing that. So I was just like, no, that's pretty good then. It was right. Her interpretation was right. But at the same time, it wasn't the only way that it had to be part-time, or I couldn't do any other way. That wasn't going to be my full career. But no, yes, I disagree with that now.
Well, good. Awesome. What about you, Alex?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that I sort of always kind of felt just drawn to. And I've had a lot of different careers in my life, like very different. So I'm someone who likes to sort of dabble in different things. So for me, I knew like at an undercurrent, astrology was already kind of my passion and kind of like slow burn. So now that I've kind of put my attention on that, I think if you're passionate and driven enough about something, you can make that be what you want to do. That doesn't, in that sort of sense, like it's something for me that felt like really right to pursue, and it's just come easily, and it just sort of works its way to being. And knowing your worth as well is really, really important, and knowing like you've studied so much towards what you're giving someone, and you're helping someone. And like you said, Heather, a lot of the service type based modalities, especially in the spiritual community, you feel like you should be giving this for free because it's helping people, but it's also, you need to be able to help yourself too in order to help other people. So that's also really important, and something I always refer back to. But it just feels like it's an ease and flow, and that to me knows that that's the right pathway to take. So it's felt right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm so glad that you took that path. And that is something that we, in the Cosmic Academy of Astrology, we have a whole like level that not just it teaches you how to structure your readings and how to give professional level consultations, and helps you hone in on your consultation skills. But we also give you the basics that you need in order to get things going with running an astrology business. And we try to help our students understand that if this is something that you want to do professionally, our students don't all want to be professional astrologers. Of course, a lot of them just want to learn for themselves and to help other people in their lives. And eventually, sometimes they do switch gears and want to do professional. But if you do want to do that, we provide some support and just the things you would need to know to really get things started. So I do want people to know that this can be like your career. Like you can do the thing that you love and, do it for a living instead of the thing that maybe you don't love so much that you're doing right now. But yeah, let me know down in the comment section, or the chat, actually, because we're doing the live chat right now. Let me know in the chat if you guys have any questions for all of us while we're here on the screen. There's a little bit of a lag time between, when you guys post your chat questions and when we hear them. So in a couple of minutes, we'll come back to the chat and we'll answer your questions here. But in the meantime, do you guys have anything else that you want to share that you struggled with when you first started learning astrology? Alex, what about you?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of what I was kind of wanting to sort of learn more about was how to structure transits and predictive readings, because I did find that was something that I kind of, once I grasped the foundational knowledge through the course, and that was something I wanted to build on. So for me, throughout the Cosmic Academy of Astrology, learning how to actually structure transit readings and solar return readings and all the different layers and components that you need to sort of add on in order to give a correct and precise predictive reading for someone. And that really, there's something I'm passionate about, and that's what really was enlightened within me in the course, was that was really, really well structured. So if that's something that maybe you're interested in, that's within the course, it's just incredible. That's what's really stood out to me for studying it properly.
Well, thank you for saying that. Yeah. And there is this, it takes some finesse to kind of layer all the different predictive techniques. And so that is something that we kind of work on helping people hone in on in the academy, because you'll get better predictions when you're using multiple techniques. But then if you don't layer it in the right way, you're going to just end up muddled and confused. And so, yeah, that is kind of like a big factor there. That's another big myth too, you guys. I don't know if you're aware of this, but a lot of people, we talked about this in the Q&A last night, I think, but there are a lot of people who think that astrology can't make predictions, like actual astrologers that say astrology is not predictive. I find that insane. I don't know about you guys, but astrology is inherently predictive. The whole basis of astrology, its foundations in ancient times, were predictive. Like, it was originally used for mundane astrology predictions. So predictions about like kings and queens and world events and big picture types of things that impact societies as a whole. And yeah, especially now that we're revisiting some of those ancient techniques that are more predictive, like you can do some crazy stuff with astrology. So let's see if anybody has any questions here real quick. What advice would you recommend for new astrologers for dealing with skepticism and skeptical people? What are your ways of respectfully responding? That is a really good question. I just answered this for one of our students, and we'll all give our answers real quick here with that. But first and foremost, I don't care. I don't respond to people who are skeptical about astrology. I'm not going to force somebody to understand something they don't want to understand. I just don't have time for that. There are so many people who do understand and who do love astrology and who do want my actual help as an astrologer, that I don't have time to care about that. And most people, I find, are pretty open to it. Even the people that are skeptical are at least polite about it. But I do have a couple of things that you can kind of say that to help explain it to somebody I wouldn't just go out and try to jam it down someone's throat who's skeptical. It's not going to work. And there's no point to that. But if there's somebody who's a little skeptical, but they're interested and intrigued and they want to know and they actually want to understand, how could this be a thing? There are two different things that I like to say. So the first one is about the sun and the moon. And so in astrology, the sun and the moon are the two biggest influences. They're the closest to the earth. They are the luminaries. They have a special significance, and they have the biggest pull on us as human beings. And when it comes to the way nature works and just opening your eyes and observing what's going on in the natural world, the sun and moon have very observable impacts on what's going on down here on planet Earth. The sun changes the seasonal cycles. It actually impacts the way that plants grow or become dormant. It impacts what we do in our human behavior based on those seasons. It impacts animal behavior and migration cycles. It impacts everything in existence. Life wouldn't exist without the sun. So it impacts us very physically. The moon as well. The moon actually pulls the tides. We can see that, right? We can see the changing of the tides with the moon. We can also see how it impacts reproductive cycles of plants and animals, and even it has an association with the human menstrual cycle. And so the moon, no scientists would say that the sun and moon have no impact on behavior and actual things that are happening down here on planet Earth. And so in astrology, as we go further and further out into the solar system, each planet, the farther it is, the more subtle the influence on us. And that's how it would work, right? And so if the sun and moon can have such a big overt impact on us, why can't the planets have a more subtle influence on what's going on down here on planet Earth? Why can't they? The second thing that I always talk about is this actually comes from David Icke. So he talked about astrology in terms of like an invisible field of information. And so he used the example of Wi-Fi. You can't see Wi-Fi. Like you can't see it, but you know it's there. No one's sitting here like in the modern world with a computer saying Wi-Fi doesn't exist. It's transmitting information. We can see the results of that information being transmitted, but we can't see the Wi-Fi. But we don't sit there and say, well, the Wi-Fi doesn't exist because I can't visibly see it. We can only see like 0.00001% of the electromagnetic spectrum. And so like we can't see Wi-Fi, but we know it's there because we can see the observable effects of it. We know the planets are doing something because we can see the observable effects of it. We can't necessarily see that energetic transmission. And if you go into like the Amazon rainforest, like to a tribe that has never heard of Wi-Fi, they would think that what you're talking about isn't real and that it's like some sort of magic or something like that. They wouldn't understand it. So just because people don't understand the astrology because they haven't experienced it yet, as we have as astrologers and as people who are interested in and follow astrology, they haven't seen the direct results of it yet. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So those are my things I say. If people want it, I don't like force it on them. So yeah, that was a big tangent. I'll get off my soapbox now. Shanna, do you have anything to add to that? What would you say?
If people are interested, but they don't, like they're kind of skeptical or they're on the fence, usually what I like to say is like, okay, you know what your sun sign is, right? But do you know that your moon sign can tell you like, you know, how what you need emotionally to feel safe? Like, tell me what you need to feel safe, and maybe I'll guess your moon sign. I don't know. Right. Like I like to kind of play games with people. Venus and Gemini is what I do. But yeah, sometimes people be like, oh, well, I like so-and-so. And so we'll talk about it a little bit and it becomes a conversation. And then they'll pull out like their phone or something like that and they'll say, you need my time, right? Like some people already know and they just want to maybe like talk about it a little bit more. So that's my experience with it. I've come up against like straight up skeptics where they're like, I don't know what you're doing, but it's all fake.
Nice.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. I just shrug and okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's no point to like, they just want to like argue. So like, why am I going to do that? I don't have time. No. But Jen, what about you? Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I've had that, and it's usually curiosity, unless it's like what you just mentioned there, Shanna. If someone's just not interested, I don't go there then, and we just kind of get along in different ways. You know, we have other things in common, but a lot of times if it's something like that, I usually like to just say, well, you don't know what you don't know, and that usually piques their interest, and you know, then we have a conversation about it. And it's like, well, I don't know what I don't know, but you don't really, you know if you know about this or not, but you're asking me questions. So what do you want to know? And that just gives them the opportunity then to bring up what they really want to talk about. Because if they do have questions or doubts, usually they'll ask about it. And like Shanna, if they ask about it and you're able to tell them something, that does, like I had someone say to me, you had my interest, but now you have my attention. Because they were like, oh, how do you know that? How could you know that about me? It's not possible. And I'm like, well, I don't know that about you, but astrology does. And then I explained that to them. And then, you know, we usually have a good conversation. You know, I'm not saying I convert skeptics, but we can definitely have a good discussion on it, you know, and bring people into it and teach them some stuff that they didn't know, you know.
Yeah, that's a good approach. I like that. What about you, Alex?
I love all of what you've all said, and it's so true. And it's like a good thing to remember is like it's not all your job to convince someone that's not wanting to be convinced. And a lot of that skepticism and sort of aversency to astrology is sort of to do with what you also talked about in your first Secret Astrology Mastery video, Heather, is that history of astrology being sort of discredited in so many ways. So it's almost like this deep subconscious resistance to learning about astrology through people. So it's also keeping that in mind as well. And honestly, most people who are a little bit skeptic, it's like you said, Jenny, they don't know what they don't know. And once you start sort of opening people up, like you also said, Shanna, to things about themselves, everyone loves to learn about themselves. So when you start learning about yourself, that then opens up, you've given them a key to open up sort of doors they weren't open to exploring then as well. So it's always people do, even if they might seem a little bit skeptic, they do have they are sort of open at the same time. But again, it's also remembering if people are super, super against it, it's not your job, and don't waste your energy on them because there's more people that are open to it. So that's what I sort of keep in mind as well.
Yeah. And that kind of makes me think. So one of the things I always wonder, because first off, astrology, if you guys don't already know, has been like demonized, ridiculed. People were tortured and murdered for practicing astrology throughout different points in human history. So practicing astrology used to be a dangerous thing, and associating with people who practice astrology used to be a dangerous thing. And so I wonder if and this is just speculation, but if like subconsciously or through like epigenetics or something like that, there's a remembrance of that. And so people are afraid of astrology. Like there are people that are scared of it, like literally afraid. And they do think it's like some sort of evil thing, or they're afraid to even know their chart if they're open to it, because it's like there's this weird fear. I wonder if there's something like that that's still in us that makes us afraid. And also it's just all the ridicule that is still like all over the place. Like they have, instead of murdering us, I really think that there's an actual concerted effort to discredit astrology still through the use of ridicule and science to like disprove, what it is that we're doing. And so people also have this fear of being outcasted. So there's like this ingrained fear of being outcasted, and maybe even like risking your life that could stem from these like ancient time periods and what was going on. But also there's this fear of being outcasted and ridiculed by society or your peers or something along those lines. I mean, luckily it's gotten so much better though. Like I rarely have someone who's like, what the hell, when I like tell them what I do. they at least somewhat get it. And most people are actually really interested, and they won't tell everyone else they're interested, but they're like, oh my God, yeah, I get readings all the time. But they're like this like high powered attorney or something. And, you would never know it. So anyway, I just went on a little bit of a tangent there, but hopefully that helps answer your question about the skeptics. Let's see here. Annie says, I just enrolled. Yay, Annie. Welcome to the Cosmic Academy of Astrology. She's excited to looking forward to learning whole sign houses. Well, you are in the right place. Absolutely. So let's kind of jump in real quick. So I want to, before we sign off, give you guys a little overview of the Cosmic Academy of Astrology in case you guys are interested in enrolling, because tonight is the last chance to get the early bird pricing. We're doing a 20% discount, and we're offering 3 bonus courses along with the academy. And so you'll still get the bonus courses if you enroll later next week, but the discount will no longer be there. So I want to just really quickly share my screen. I've prepared a Virgo-like presentation. Okay, so this is from something I did earlier, but I just wanted to kind of show you guys a little bit about the academy. And so kind of like what we do here. So this is just a short testimonial from one of our former students, Janoski, who does astrology in Spanish. Actually, she has a Spanish speaking astrology channel called So Far So Happy that you guys should totally subscribe to if you speak Spanish. But she said that before she enrolled in the Cosmic Academy of Astrology, she was actually already charging for natal chart readings, which is not common with our students. But the reason that she enrolled is because she was in the process of filming an astrology course in Spanish as part of an online community. She didn't feel ready to teach yet, though, so she decided to take a step back from that and enroll in the Cosmic Academy of Astrology instead. She didn't think she needed the foundational stuff, but she realized in the end that she actually did need it because she felt insecure about her predictive abilities. And so she had to go back, revisit her foundations, reinforce what she learned, and then from there go on to build her predictive astrology practice. She says that the Academy is a long-term program that takes you through every step of the way. The Cosmic Academy of Astrology is a real astrology school, not just bits and pieces. She loved the bonuses, and she's very happy to have lifetime access to the course, which you guys all get, by the way. So if you jump in now and take advantage of our early bird discount, you don't necessarily have to finish the course or start the course right now. You can start at any time. It's a self-paced program. The Q&A sessions will be there. Everything we're going to talk about will still be there for you. But she said that after completing the program, she's now able to make astrological predictions with confidence, and she's applying her predictive knowledge with clients and friends. And so, I love that. Her channel is really awesome too. I watch it with subtitles in English sometimes because I don't speak Spanish. But basically, in the Cosmic Academy of Astrology, we have a 3-step framework that we follow. And the first step is to obtain a clear roadmap for your education that builds your knowledge from the ground up. And so that's the clear roadmap and the structured system. So a lot of us were talking about the fact that learning haphazardly all over the place lacks structure, and it causes a lot of confusion about how to synergize what you're learning and put the pieces together. This is where, you clear that up. You get really solid information that's been time tested. I only teach what I have learned through direct experience, works with clients in practice. I've done thousands of chart readings, you guys. And so this is the best of the information. I've sorted through the nonsense so you don't have to. Step 2 is receiving feedback and guidance from a trusted source. So in the Cosmic Academy of Astrology, we provide a lot of mentorship. All of us here on the screen, we're going to be your mentors. We're going to help answer your questions and guide you through the process, give you feedback on your interpretations and your homework assignments. Which leads me to step 3, which is active learning and practice. This is like kind of the icing on the cake here. And so this is where you actively engage with your education and practice what you're learning. Astrology, you guys, is only 50% book learning. The rest is practice. And that's another thing I wish that I would have understood when I first started learning. I don't know about you guys, but I started practicing way too late. And practice is really how things click and start to actually piece together so you can really understand what you're doing. Like, you're not going to learn astrology without practicing. And so in the Academy, we provide specific assignments that are geared toward helping you to actively engage with the material, synergize what you're learning every step of the way. We practice with each other in the community forum where you get access to a whole community of astrologers, and you get feedback from us. We encourage you to find study buddies, and we require that you actually give practice readings with real life practice clients. Okay. And then so the Cosmic Academy of Astrology is now open for early bird enrollments. And so we have 4 levels in the Academy. And so level 1 is where we lay the foundations for success as an astrologer. This is where you're going to learn how to give natal chart readings. You absolutely need to learn how to give natal chart readings before you can move on to learn predictions, because nothing, you guys, can be activated. This is another misconception. Nothing can happen through a transit or a solar return or any other timing technique that isn't already present in the birth chart as a natal potential. That's the way that I like to say it. I was trying to think of the words there. And so you have to look at how those natal potentials are being activated in order to understand a prediction. So people who are trying to understand transits before they can actually read a chart, like you guys in the chat, if you guys are trying to read transits, but you can't actually give a natal chart reading, it's not going to work. It's just not. You're skipping a giant step here. And I see Alex is like nodding, like, yeah. So that's absolutely the case. So from there, we move into predictive astrology. The first level is transits, which are the most highly used predictive tool. We also do house rulerships as a predictive tool as well. You can make predictions, you guys, just from the birth chart about major life themes and actual situations that'll happen in a person's life. The transits just show you when those things are going to become activated and how they might become activated. And so we get into that really in depth in level 2. In level 3, we get into intermediate predictions, where we're learning bigger scale, big picture predictions for solar returns, lunar returns, annual perfections, secondary progressions, all of these things that look at larger spans of time that we layer with the transits. From there, we have level 4, which is for anyone who not only just wants to give readings that are really solid, but maybe wants to do this professionally. And so that's where we get into all of that. And so what you actually get in the academy, you can see our little thing up there, the little, what's it called? The little picture, the little mock-up. But you get structured video classes that build on each other to take you from beginner to intermediate level, all the way to giving professional level, accurate astrology readings with confidence. I think Jen and Alex are a testament to that, because they both recently graduated and they're doing really well with their professional practices. And they're both brilliant astrologers. I mean, they were studying before, but this is like what took their knowledge to the next level. We have comprehensive astrology information delivered in a clear, strategic, and manageable manner in a structured format, so you're not drowning in a sea of chaotic data all over the place. We have a minimum of 4 monthly live Q&A study group sessions with me and with all of the teaching assistants you see here each month to ensure that you're really understanding what you're learning. These are interactive. We do like in-the-moment quizzes on interpretations. We answer your questions. We do additional live demonstrations of the material so you can really understand how to put it together. And I say minimum of 4 monthly because as you move through the levels in the course, you unlock new study group sessions as the material gets more complicated. You get an interactive online classroom experience so you can engage with your fellow astrologers and have your questions answered by experts in real time. And I'm included in that, but everyone you're seeing on the screen that we just talked to will be the ones that are answering a lot of your questions. And our turnaround for questions and answers are really quick, usually within a few hours, if not like a day, because we have so many people in so many time zones that are helping us out with that. And so one of the ways that you get to ask your questions and get feedback is through our student forum, which is an easy to use community that offers a safe and judgment-free space for you to ask questions, connect with other students, practice your skills, and you can even get feedback on your homework or interpretations that you're trying to make as you go through in practice. And so you can actually, like if you're working with a practice client, so long as you get their permission to like share their chart with us, you can share their chart with us either privately in our designated email inbox or in the forum, and get help with your interpretations if you get stuck on something. And so that's something that we provide for you as well, which is super valuable. Like imagine being able to go in and give a reading after getting some feedback on your interpretations from like actual astrologers who have been practicing and professionally. We have weekly assignments and quizzes designed to test your knowledge and help you to synergize and think critically about what you're doing. We have an optional certificate of completion, you guys. We just added that into the program. And so that is, you can see on your screen in that little picture right there, the new certificate of completion. Because many of our students do quickly move on to giving readings professionally and they want something to kind of show their clients like, hey, I accomplished this. I know what I'm doing. We're now offering this option. Also, we give a 385-page digital workbook that helps you keep track of your notes. It helps you work with your assignments. It has everything that all of the information from the course that you need to supplement the lectures and the materials. And we actually now have it available, you guys, as a hard copy that you can purchase for a very, very low price, way cheaper than printing it yourself. This thing is massive. And yeah, our students are loving the hard copy workbook this year. And so I'm going to go through the levels so you guys can see a little bit more about what you're learning and the bonuses. And then we'll see if you guys have any questions before we head out here. But in level 1, you're going to get over 40 hours of instruction on the 10 planets, zodiac signs, houses. You'll get decans and critical degrees. You'll get everything you need to know about the angles, the lunar nodes, sect, which is like day or night chart and how that impacts the astrology. Planetary aspects, which we go into in really great detail because that's where a lot of people get stuck. because that's where you have to start integrating all the different components and synergizing it in your head to actually make a standalone interpretation. And it does become complicated. So we spend a lot of time on that. We break it down in excruciating detail for you. And so you're going to understand how to interpret aspects by the time you're done with level 1. We also give an intro to house rulerships, and we show you how to put everything together every step of the way. So in between each module is a module of putting everything together and synergizing it. That's one of the things that makes this very unique compared to other courses, is that we have a lot of synergizing and integrating going on in between every single thing that you're learning here. Level 2 is predictive astrology, where we're learning transits and house rulerships. And so you're going to get mundane transits, so transits in the sky, personal transits, outer planet transits, inner planet transits. You're going to learn how the luminaries, so the sun and moon, impact the bigger picture transits. You're going to learn to make predictions with the lunar nodes and eclipses, which are the most life-changing predictive energies with transits that you can experience a lot of the time. You're also going to get like 7 or 8 modules on house rulerships, including some really in-depth research assignments we're going to guide you through to help you really understand how to put this into practice. And we're also going to look at holistic chart interpretation and making predictions with house rulerships and transits together. And again, we have in between all of these synergizing, integrating like modules that help you to do that. Level 3 is going to be where we're learning solar returns, lunar returns, how to combine solar and lunar returns with transits, annual perfections, combining annual perfections with solar returns and transits. We'll give you an introduction to secondary progressions, especially using the progressed moon, which is where you're going to get the most dynamic energy of all of the progressed planets, and so much more. So this is kind of where you get that big picture predictive technique. And then level 4 is, there's more than 6 hours in this now, by the way, but this is where you get professional astrology ethics, counseling skills in astrology. So we help you learn how to work with your clients in real time. We help you deal with difficult client situations, and also delivering challenging information, which is a big one, because a lot of people come to me for readings scared of their chart because they've had some very inappropriate readings. And this is a pet peeve of mine. It's not even a pet peeve. A pet peeve is like someone chewing gum and like smacking their gum. This is like actually harmful to people. And so we make sure that our students know how to deliver challenging information in a way that's going to help their clients truly. We also talk about business mindset, guidelines for charging for readings, and some basic marketing skills for growing your astrology business. You'll also get 5 professional reading demonstrations, actual readings that we've given to people, so you can watch those and see how they work in real life. Okay. Right now, during our enrollment period until February 15th, you get 3 bonuses. The first bonus is the Astrology of Place. This is our astrocartography and relocation astrology webinar. And this is one of my most popular, actually, it's a mini course. It's not even a webinar. It's like 5 hours long. 6 hours long. This is my most popular course that I've done, and people absolutely love it. So this is where you're going to learn how to look at the astrocartography map that so many of you are always asking about and do relocated charts. Bonus number 2 is my electional astrology mini course. And so this is how you're going to learn how to make those charts for people that help them to figure out when to launch the thing. So if you're ever wondering, what's the best time to do this? What's the best time to do that? That's a completely different thing than natal astrology. You can't use natal astrology techniques for that. And so we teach you how to do that in this bonus. Bonus number 3 is astrological forecasting. So this is your guide to creating all signs horoscopes, just like I do on my YouTube channel. And so that's included as well for those of you who are interested in doing this as more of a business. Okay. And so finally, you guys are probably wondering, okay, that's a lot of really great stuff, but what's the investment? And so before we get into that, I just want to give you a list of everything you'll be receiving. And this is the actual, I went through and actually calculated the pricing. This is actually 2 years old. I would charge more for some of these, and some of them I am charging more for. But basically, if you added all the different things that we're doing in this course together, the value is almost 10 grand. And I'm not going to be charging you that though. So during our regular enrollment, the price is, you can start for as little as $110. So we have a payment plan that gives you the option to do 12 payments of $110. So you can get a course that should cost thousands with a lot of direct mentorship. We had someone yesterday actually comment that it feels almost like as if you're getting one-on-one mentorship with how good we've set this up for them. And so you get that for 12 payments of $110. But if you guys are watching this live right now, that's not what you're going to be paying. And so early bird enrollment ends tonight at midnight, and you can start for as little as $88 with our payment plan option. And you can start learning astrology right now. You can start interacting with us and asking your questions right now in the student forum. And so that's what we have for you. So I hope to see you guys in class in the Cosmic Academy of Astrology. And so let's see how you guys are doing in the chat here. If you guys have any questions before we sign off. Let's see. Oh yeah, Boris is in our course. So that's awesome. I'm glad to see you here. Linda says, is there a section on medical astrology? That is a good question, Linda. There is not a section on medical astrology. However, I don't know if I should say this on YouTube, but I guess the cat will be out of the bag. I'm planning to actually launch a medical astrology course. The enrollment will be starting in a couple of months only for Cosmic Academy of Astrology graduates. That's what I'm planning to do right now. Because, Linda, in order to learn medical astrology, you need to know everything in this course first. You have to understand how to do normal, like general astrology, and to make predictions with transits and all of these other tools before you can go on to learn something more niche and specialized like medical astrology. So I need all of my students to really have that foundation. And so for graduates of the Academy, that will be an option. I don't have an exact date and time yet, but that's something that I am this year making available. Mystical Rainbow Casey says, honestly, Heather, you could charge 4 times as much for this course package. The value is unbelievable, especially for the quality of education and teaching. Thank you so much, Casey, for saying that. I appreciate that. We get that a lot from our students, which is weird because they're like, you should charge more. Like they want to pay more. Katya is excited for the medical astrology. Stephen says, such a great investment, all the best material on the subject. Thank you so much for saying that. I appreciate that very much. Awesome. Okay. So it looks like we're good here. We have a lot of people talking about how awesome the course is, which is helpful. Hi, Stella. Oh, it's so good to see you. Stella says, I totally recommend the Academy. Me and my study buddies still go strong every week. That's awesome. Oh, I love that our students are still connecting with their study buddies. So many of our students have like made friends and like even do collaborations like in the astrology world with their study buddies and people they met through the course. So that's so fun. But yeah, so Stella actually graduated 2 years ago and she's still hanging out with her study buddy and practicing. I love that. All right. So anyway, I'm getting distracted. I love hearing from our students. I'm so glad you guys are in the chat. But before we sign off, where can everyone find you guys if they want to book readings? So Shanna, what about you? Where are you at?
I am at apogeeofthemoon.com. That's my website. Or you can find me on Instagram, moonapogee_astrology. So that's the easiest place to reach me, really, just because I'm always there, always on there.
Awesome. So I'll post Shanna's link down below. Jen, what about you?
I have a website called astrosoulalchemy.com, and I'm also available on Instagram and Facebook with that same name. So everything can be done through the website, or if you want to reach out, private message anyway through Instagram or Facebook, I'm available.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Tracy's actually dropping their links in the chat if you guys are interested in readings. Alex, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, so just like Jenna and Jenny, you can find me on my website, which is venusinvirgoastrology.com, or my Instagram, which is venusinvirgo, just Venus in Virgo Astrology. So you can find me on there. I'm active on both, so you can contact me through either the website or through Instagram.
Oh, perfect. And so all of their links are in the chat. The link to enroll in the Cosmic Academy of Astrology is also in the chat and will be down below in the description if you guys are watching this after the fact. Thank you guys so much. We're going to have to do this again. This was fun. Like, we should come up with just interesting things to chat about on YouTube and just do this once a month or something. Let us know in the comments below if you guys would like that, because I thought this was really fun. I don't know about you guys.
It was fun.
Yeah, I think it's definitely fun. It's like a podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We'll have to come up with a name for ourselves. Like, I don't know, the 4 elements, or I don't know, something. Except we're all like mostly water.
Yeah.
All right. I'll let you guys go. Bye, everyone. Thank you guys so much for watching. And we'll possibly see you next month doing something like this again. All right. Bye.